So today's speaker is somebody who, like me, is incredibly passionate about building community. Niall Jones set up the peer space to solve problems of isolation and loneliness amongst men in particular, and he's here today to tell us about his journey and how he became the founder of Peer Space and the champion of lonely men.
Thanks. Hello everyone. So there's 4 million chronically lonely people in the UK. 30 million suffering in some way. So that's 34 million people affected in total. It's one of the major challenges facing our society today. So I want to talk to you a bit about how I lost my home and my sense of what home is, and how I became a champion of welcoming spaces as founder of the Peer Space. So in 2006, I went on a bit of an expat adventure, which was really like one long party in the sun for about 3 years with my young family. Really, everything went as well as it could possibly go in the early days. We were building a young business in the sort of part of the New Europe boom, going from a business plan up to about 100 people. But unfortunately, it kind of took a turn for the worse around 2008, 2009, in that recession probably many of us remember. And over the next few years, everything that kind of could have gone wrong kind of went wrong. So in the end, I made the really difficult decision to come back alone to try to rebuild our lives in the UK, effectively to attempt a re-entry to the UK. And it was a really difficult process. I found it very disorientating, really quite frustrating. Quite a lot of people around me that were close to me were kind of angry with me, I think, for not being able to navigate this challenging time. And more or less, I became this kind of a little bit like a wild wanderer at times, just roaming the back lanes and the streets, sort of trying to figure out how to break back into UK society and the economy. And it was really a very, 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 very challenging time. But everything kind of changed when I stumbled across a dinner club in Bristol called Good Vibrations Bristol. And as soon as I arrived, I had this feeling like, thank goodness I found you. I just felt very welcome, very friendly vibe. It was kind of intellectually stimulated dinners with thought leaders. And the guy running it, the organizer, a guy called Ryan, had this kind of Cheshire Cat grin, as if he was saying, it's all right, we're all mad here. And this sort of feeling like it was an inclusive, welcoming environment. I became a regular at these dinners for several years, and practically the best night of my life over that period, although I never did kind of get that job I needed to bring the family back over. So it's an amazing example of a very welcoming space, and this is a little bit my sense of humor bringing this image in. But another very cool welcoming space I experienced a few years ago, just before I made the decision to move back to this area, was a very cool village welcoming ceremony on a retreat about an hour away from here, where there was a very good demonstration of a village welcoming ceremony. And the idea was that in the old times, there was an old ritual that when people left the village, however long they were away, it didn't matter. When they made the return, there was a big welcoming moment, like a ceremony or a celebration of that person. Like there was a big recognition that they'd made the return, like they'd been missed, and it really meant a lot to that person, obviously, and to the village that they were back. And we could think of the return conceptually in modern times as being from many different things, like maybe parental leave, long-term unemployment, from sickness, or of course from abroad like me. And I think the reason why it's really important as a ritual is because this return concept, or the arrival of like someone that might feel a bit like an alien, it's difficult for the people that are kind of in the village, that are in the community, because they're busy with their own lives, getting on with all the things that they need to for their day-to-day life. But for the returner, in many ways, it's kind of harder. At the beginning, they might need a lot of simple things like just shelter, food, water, time to rest, probably a bit of advice. I know personally for me, one of the big challenges was how different it felt being on my own. Even walking around the streets now, like a big Hagrid character on my own, going down the street, and people kind of crossing the road. So different from when I was with my family, and your whole life rotates around the family unit and other families and how that all works. So that was one example. Today is kind of my premiere of my talk. It's the first time I've had this opportunity in an environment like this to share my story, and of course, that's one of the cool things about that idea, that once you've had that recovery time, you might want to take a turn to share your story. to share a bit about the narrative of what happens when you're away, a bit about how you felt, maybe some learnings, and maybe what you kind of need now. So what I wonder, in general, considering all of that, is whether we could do welcoming better. You can work with us as the peer space. I'm going to say a bit about the peer space now, but maybe you can go away this weekend or over the rest of the summer and try and create more welcoming spaces, because you never know who in your community, your extended family, through your friendships or even your neighborhoods, who might need that kind of welcoming space at any given moment. A lot of people are kind of hiding maybe how they're feeling, and I've certainly got so much from certainly that very welcoming environment, those dinners in Bristol, from watching that village welcoming ceremony, and from spaces like SiGNAL on this return. So back in my story, I never was able to bring the family back over. So in 2017, I moved back to Bulgaria, and after some significant personal development work, I did become a performing musician, and at the same time, I started my own dinner club out in Bulgaria, and it became this wonderful, very civilized watering hole for international business people to meet in the capital of Bulgaria. And we ran it for 2 years. I'm going to say successfully. We had VCs, all kinds of business leaders coming together, and someone would normally share their story. There'd be an expert speaker, or someone had something interesting to share in the environment, and everyone kind of bonded around the table. And we did that until the world changed, obviously, a few years ago. A year into that phase, I made a second return to the UK, and we incorporated the peer space. And all in all, since the beginning in Sofia, we've hosted about 100 spaces and spotlighted about 50 speakers. And our bread and butter stuff is kind of speaker dinners, but there are other kinds of events that we can do. And obviously thousands of people have participated in these events. And I'm personally now sort of full-time in the business since New Year. And we're on a very sort of exciting period and looking to do more and more events. And it just felt like time for my talk, because I put so many people in the spotlight, but I've never done my talk, although I much prefer to sing other people's songs than tell my story. It's not comfortable at all. So, coming to the end, I think there is a loneliness epidemic. I'm really committed to trying to impact as many of those 34 million people as possible. It's not very complicated in terms of what everyone could be doing, whether they work with us or not. I'm talking about pub parties, dinner parties, these kind of things, but where they're done perhaps on scale. With we effectively need some resources. So the connection back to business is effectively that ultimately I think businesses can pay, because I don't think governments will pay. So business can pay, and it's very good business, because if you look after the people that are in your community near your HQ, or you look after the people that you're trying to nurture for your business, then they're probably going to want to do more business with you. Especially in these times. What I've noticed in the last 6 months, we've started running dinners, and I'm getting very positive emotional feedback from people about the fact that we create these kind of big Christmas party, treated like royalty type dinners. People come out to them, and they really appreciate the opportunity to have that kind of time. So it isn't the beginning of the journey, but there is a lot to do. I want to do this beyond the UK, of course. I started outside the UK. So we have got a big event coming up, hopefully in June in London, which will be hopefully for the international business community, is what we're building towards. And we want to do much more of this. So if you want to come on the journey, I know you can do your bit, but if you want to get involved, reach out to me. I've got business cards, and I'd love to chat with you. Thank you very much. Bye.